Stop eating foods that make you feel shitty. If you feel good eating certain foods, you should probably stick with them. There's other foods that maybe are touted as health foods, but you feel like crap when you eat them, don't eat them. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to IFBB AMA, Ask Me Anything. And a question that has been asked of me quite often is pertaining to gut health, right? I've been asked several times to do an episode about gut health, about digestion, what foods to avoid, what things not to do. And I'm gonna be honest, the whole concept of gut health, while I think it's an amazingly worthwhile subject, it's totally worth talking about, I'd be lying if I said I don't get completely annoyed. It's almost like gut health has become this buzz term. And every influencer on social media talking about gut health and blaming it for anything and everything that goes wrong in their life. It's like I went bankrupt and I lost my house and I ended up in prison. And really it's because of my gut health. So while I think we should totally spend some time talking about it, because I have a lot of things I think that could be helpful, I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor. I'm not a gut health microbiome specialist. It's probably a pretty intricate subject, to be honest. It's one that, again, I'm not going to pretend to know everything about. I don't know who does know everything about it. You're talking about a pretty complex system, right? Where there's all these different good and bad bacteria at work, and it's not something I'm that knowledgeable about. However, when it comes to digestion, which obviously goes hand in hand with gut health, I do consider myself fairly knowledgeable because I've had things I've had to overcome myself, things that I've helped clients with. And I think that's probably where I can lend the majority of my expertise and help. So rather than sit here and talk about foods, right, that are going to be good or bad for gut health, which, yes, it's worth discussing and we'll get to it, I think probably what is the number one thing on my list that I want to talk about, and really I want to talk about three things, but the first one is elimination, all right, and constipation. If you are having issues going to the bathroom regularly, you're going to have issues all over the place, right? They're going to be digestive issues, could be problems with inflammation, just problems where you just don't feel your best or look your best. So let's just start at the very bottom and let's work our way up to the top. And let's talk first, really, hydration. Normal process of elimination is being adequately hydrated. That said, a lot of you who have been in a contest prep know leading up to a show, you could be drinking tons and tons of water, but it's like it's not sticking, right? And you end up pretty constipated. Things like magnesium are certainly worth discussing. Magnesium in its most crude form, something like a magnesium oxide or a magnesium citrate, can have a pretty strong laxative effect once you move towards something like magnesium lactate, or what's probably most optimal, a chelated magnesium, where it's bound to a protein. It's not going to have as much of a laxative effect, but it is going to still help to regulate your bowel function. Magnesium is probably one of the most underconsumed nutrients. You definitely want to aim for at least 400 milligrams a day, again, from a good magnesium. The one I use is from Doctor's Best. It's their high absorption magnesium. Let's talk liver function. A lot of times when it comes to bowel movements, people are quick to jump on the fiber train. Well, I need more fiber. I got to take more fiber. A lot of times people will increase their fiber intake only to have more gastric distress, more digestive issues, more constipation. I think one of the most underconsidered things really is liver health and bile flow. The more, free-flowing bile is in response to food consumption, the easier time you're gonna have digesting your food and eliminating waste. Doing things to increase bile flow, certain herbs, roots, ginger, turmeric, things of that nature. But also essential phospholipids are probably one of the least talked about nutrients and one of the most helpful when it comes to proper liver function. There's a product called Essential Forte. It's not produced in the US, but it's produced throughout Europe and other parts of the world, South Africa, I believe Australia, but widely used all over Europe, and it's used to treat cirrhosis of the liver. That's a product that, even though I don't have cirrhosis of the liver, recognizing how vital and how important proper liver function is, and also recognizing that I've done some things in the past that might not have been the most kind to my liver. It's a product that I use daily, 2 capsules 6 times a day. Anytime I have blood work done, liver function always comes back really, really good. But one of the things I noticed is using it, my bowel movements are really good. I do believe it has a positive effect on the liver, and there's studies that support that. A product worth utilizing. Again, is it a fermented food? No. Is it a probiotic? No. But something that is going to bolster liver health is absolutely going to help your digestive function. When it comes to fiber intake, it really depends on the individual. Some people have good luck with it. Some people, they have increased gas, bloating. Me personally, I used Metamucil for years. It was suggested by somebody else, and I will say when I first started using it, really, really great bowel movements. Felt really good, empty, but as time went on, that started to decrease, and I felt that I couldn't produce a good bowel movement without it. So it's like if I had to travel someplace, here I was bringing Metamucil with me. I don't know when it was, but I eventually got off it entirely. Instead, I started focusing on really, I guess if you could say just liver function and giving my body all the right nutrients and paying more attention to other factors, which I want to get into. Let's talk about stress management. A lot of people, when they are under excessive amounts of stress, it will go to their stomach. I mean, I can remember back to being a kid. I have school the next day, and I was one of those kids, like you had to push me onto the school bus. Nerves are overactive. It's the first thing that happens. Stomach is messed up. So for a lot of people, stress manifests itself in ways that will affect the stomach. Now, is that somehow having an instant effect on gut bacteria? I don't think so. I don't know, but I don't think so. So it's like a lot of times when people talk about gut health, it's like all about probiotics and it's all about, you know, that balance of good and bad bacteria, which there's no doubt about it is important. Managing stress and giving your body the nutrients to better deal with it, you know, taking a B complex, very important. And one of the things I think a lot of people, areas where they get messed up is taking way too many stimulants. I think people are overstimulated. A lot of people, they can't start their day without a cup of coffee. Then they're on their way, they got to have another cup, and it's mid-afternoon, oh, I need another cup of coffee. And then they're going to go take a pre-workout before they, hit the gym. I don't know, maybe you're just a little bit too wound up. And really, I mean, that's hitting your nervous system. And kind of what I just described a minute ago, when you're going through something and you're really stressed, your nervous system is ramped up, and it does affect your stomach and it does affect your digestion. If you guys know me, you've been watching my stuff, you know I'm not a huge fan of stimulants anyways. I understand why people use them. Look, a lot of us are working multiple jobs. We don't always get as much sleep as we should. But I think also sometimes people have an unrealistic expectation of what a workout is supposed to be, right? When you walk through the doors of the gym or you walk down to your basement to work out, you're not always a ball of fire. Sometimes it takes a set or two to get going, but once you get going, you're okay. I think a lot of times people think like, no, I'm supposed to walk into the gym ready to tear it up. And I don't think that's realistic. And I think people get used to feeling that way, and they have to keep taking stims, and over time they have to keep taking more and more of them. I don't think it's the best road to go down, and I do think it has a negative effect on your stomach, your gut, your digestion, and the way you process the food that you take in. I'm not a huge stim fan. I think if you're going to use them a couple times a week, you say, hey, leg day is a tough one, back day is a tough one, and if it just so happens that maybe I didn't get enough rest the night before, or I feel like I need a bump heading into those workouts, I'm going to use it. Using them every day, I think you're going to be on the path to diminishing returns really quickly. And in the meantime, fucking up your stomach. And what about adrenal fatigue, right? Is that a real thing? I don't know, but I don't see why maybe it wouldn't be. Anyone who's ever gone through kind of something major in their life, maybe a period where something had gone really wrong and you're dealing with something and it's going on for weeks and weeks, you end up beat up. I don't know if that's adrenal fatigue. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just, you're just tired out, let's call it. That is very real. And I think trying to find ways to manage stress, much easier said than done. If you can do that effectively, yeah, it's gonna have a positive effect on your whole body, but especially on your gut and on your digestive system. So that brings me to sleep. Most of us probably don't get the sleep that we need. When we are sleeping, maybe it's not the best quality of sleep. So do what you can to improve that. Turn the TV off. I work all day. I'd like to have a little bit of time at night to unwind, spend some time with the kids, watch something, because it's gonna start cutting into me getting enough hours of sleep. I'm turning it off. Now, I talk to people who, they watch this series and they watch that show and they're, binge watching this. I mean, I don't really want to hear from people like that they don't get enough sleep because you're spending your time watching TV. Turn the TV off, get to bed. Once you're in bed, a lot of you guys watching this, if you're bigger guys, and it's not always bigger guys, but a lot of times, yes, maybe you got sleep apnea. Do what you got to do. Pick up a CPAP. At least if you aren't getting the volume, the number of hours of sleep, at least try to make sure that the number of hours you're at least getting quality sleep. I'm sure 5 or 6 hours of really high quality sleep is probably worth 8, 9, maybe even 10 hours of crap sleep. So if a CPAP needs to enter the chat, okay. Even stupid things, man, the mattress you're sleeping on. How many people I see driving 50, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 cars and you're sleeping on a shit mattress? Come on, man. If you sleep 8 hours a night, that's a third of your life spent on that mattress. Spend a couple thousand, make sure it's a good one. Even your bed sheets, your pillow, get nice stuff that makes you comfortable. I know this is a funny discussion to be having, but these are important things. And if it's gonna help you to sleep better, it's gonna benefit everything. Lastly, let's talk food. Probably the best advice I could give, this is gonna sound really generic, but so overlooked. Stop eating foods that make you feel shitty, all right? If you feel good eating it, meaning you consume it and it doesn't run totally contrary, right, to what it is you're trying to accomplish, meaning, maybe you eat ice cream and you feel good eating it, all right? I'm not saying to just go eat garbage. If you feel good eating certain foods, you should probably stick with them. And there's other foods that maybe are touted as health foods, but you feel like crap when you eat them. Don't eat them. You know how many times I would say over the years I prefer white rice over brown rice, and people would be like, oh, but you're not supposed to eat white rice. You're supposed to eat brown rice. It's better for you. I feel like shit if I eat brown rice. I feel much better eating white rice. I eat white rice. There's endless examples of that. Foods that are supposed to be good for you. They say. Who they are, I don't know, but they say these are the foods you should eat. Don't listen to that. Right? You have to pay attention to yourself. You have to have enough conviction to say, hey, I know a lot of people like that, or it's supposed to be good for you, but when I eat it, I feel like hell. That should be reason enough to eliminate it and don't look back. When it comes to just foods, I can speak to myself personally and things I've seen with clients, but again, these are not rules that are universal or that apply to people across the board. Dairy is something that messes up a lot of people or people don't do really well with. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you do well with dairy and you feel good eating it, I think you should absolutely include it in your diet on a regular basis because I think it could literally be a superfood. I wish that I tolerated it better. I feel lousy when I consume it, so I don't. And if you're somebody who you feel crappy if you eat dairy, get rid of it, man. Just let it go. Even when it comes to things like certain carbohydrates, right? Wheat, pasta, breads, there's no reason to stick with those if you feel lousy. I mean, you don't have to be diagnosed as being gluten intolerant or having celiacs or, anything like that. And I'm not saying you need to eat a gluten-free diet, but maybe you feel a little bit better if you consume rice or potato. If that's the case, opt for those. It doesn't have to be an official diagnosis and you have to dedicate yourself to a gluten-free life and only consume foods that are produced in a gluten-free facility. Just opt for things that make you feel better and avoid the things that make you feel like shit. If I could offer another piece of advice, I would say avoid overly processed foods or food products that contain these long lists of ingredients. It's kind of complicated food. I think the body tends to prefer simple stuff. You've probably heard me talk before about eating single ingredient foods. I'm not saying that's the answer to everything. Opting for things that are natural, easy for the body to process, and not bastardized and overly complicated. Sometimes we go from having something that's a food to producing something that's more of a thing. Probably not the best thing for your digestive system. So sticking with simple foods, single ingredient foods, avoiding things that are overly processed, or like I said, with these lengthy lists of ingredients. Another thing I would tell you, try to avoid overeating. There's a lot of people that come to me for, coaching, and they're like, oh, I'm so bloated and I have no appetite, and they're guys that are just force feeding food, and they're eating all hours of the day, right up to bedtime. Maybe they're waking up at night to eat, and their system is just inundated, and they're taking 50 different supplements, and they're using every drug under the sun, including oral steroids, which, by the way, I think is probably one of the worst things you could consume, really in general, but especially if you have problems with your stomach or digestion. Orals are just horrible. And again, mainly because they so negatively impact the liver. And after that, it's just the whole thing falls apart. But guys, I know you're trying to grow, but it's no different than a plant. We both know that if we had a plant sitting here, there's only so much sunlight we could give it before we fry it. Plants have a rhythm, right? They can only take in so much sunlight, and they need periods without it if they're gonna live, let alone thrive. Same thing with water. Plants need water. Great, you want to give it plenty of water. But you could absolutely drown the plant if you give it too much. Same thing with food. If you guys, anybody out there does their own lawn care, you know that nitrogen is the foundation of a healthy lawn, right? Getting it to grow, making it nice and lush and green and disease resistant. Give it too much nitrogen, you'll burn it and you will kill it. And the same is true for a person. Too much of anything, you're gonna fuck yourself up. Things are only gonna happen at a certain rate, and then once you begin to try to force things, you're actually gonna begin to hinder your progress. Try to have a reasonable amount of patience. I do not believe that waking up in the middle of the night to eat is a good thing. I think it's probably gonna mess up your sleep and the digestion that's gonna occur during the middle of the night. To take it a step further, not only should you not be waking up during the night to eat, but I wouldn't eat any closer than 2 hours before bedtime, an hour at max. But you need time before bed to digest, sit up. You don't want to be trying to digest food when your body is attempting to rest and recover. What's going to happen if you're trying to do both? You're going to do neither one of them effectively or to the best of your body's ability. Hot liquids. The consumption of hot liquids during a meal, if you're somebody who has problems with digestion, consuming something hot with a meal or after or before the meal is gonna help. That'll help to break down food. If you look at, when you wash dishes, we both know if you have a plate and there's food caked onto it, and if you hit the plate with cold water, it's gonna not work as well trying to wash it to dissolve that food as if you're washing it with hot water. Having something hot after a meal or little sips of it with the meal. You don't want to overconsume liquids with meals if you're somebody whose digestion is compromised. And last but not least, because this is really what probably is the beginning of the discussion for most people, is good bacteria, whether in the form of probiotic supplements or fermented foods that are supposed to contain live cultures. You're looking at somebody who's gone so far as to make and ferment his own sauerkraut, okay, in Crocs in his basement. I'm not somebody who's against the consumption of fermented foods. I would tell you it's like anything else. If you feel good consuming them, consume them. Me personally, when I was having a few servings of sauerkraut a day, I felt okay. I felt good. I didn't think it was magic. I think all the other things that I just talked about, let's call them lifestyle things, I think those were probably way more important, way more influential, way more impactful than just the simple consumption of some bacteria. And I think that's really kind of the point of this discussion. A lot of people think that gut health is taking a probiotic, or gut health is eating fermented foods. And while those two things I'm sure can help, I think gut health is way more than that. And it's all the other things that you're gonna do, whether it's things you put in your mouth or just really the general lifestyle that you lead, that is gonna impact your digestive system and your gut. Yeah, I have a probiotic I use on a daily basis. It's called True Flora. It has a couple enzymes added along with it. I like it. I've used probiotic products that I felt like made me constipated and had a negative effect. If you're somebody who has a probiotic and you like it and you feel good with it, keep using it. If you're someone who's used a probiotic before and you feel like it messed you up, it's possible there's one out there for you that will make you feel better. Or if you feel like you've tried a bunch and they're just not for you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. Same thing when it comes to fermented foods. If you hate them, if they're disgusting to you, I think probably the stress that would come just surrounded from knowing you need to eat it or feeling like you have this pressure to eat those foods, it's probably more negative than any type of benefit you're gonna get from it. I would say don't do that to yourself. Focus on your lifestyle as a whole. Do things that are positive. Get your sleep. Don't overstimulate yourself. Make sure you're going to the bathroom regularly. Don't eat stupid foods made of 1,000 ingredients. Avoid the use of oral steroids, I think is a huge one. And I think that's the best you're gonna do. I think that's the best anybody's gonna do. I hope you found this helpful. Until next time, I'm out.